Hello, everybody. Today I'm doing a video on distortion, which is like my favorite genre of like anything. I love distortion plugins. I love adding distortion to sounds where you wouldn't expect it. It's probably my favorite overarching effect, and also, I'm including fuzz and overdrive and anything that messes up a sound. And I wanted to go over my top three plugins for distortion, and then I also wanted to go over some ways you can use some of Ableton's stock stuff to still get some really great effects. They have some great distortion capabilities built into the software already, and I'll show you how to do it. I'm starting off just to keep things equal and easy to like hear what's actually going on. I'm just doing everything off like a sine tone. So I just got a sine tone on like an operator down here, and I'm just going to show how each of the distortion plugins works. So I'll start with number 3, which would be the Berserk Distortion. This is a distortion by Waves, and it's pretty versatile. I use specific functions of it a lot more. So this one usually is more of a special use case and not too much of like an overarching one that I use a ton, but I'll go over some of the features. So first you have your character, which is just kind of like the distortion type. So and you also have the Berserk button, which is fun. You just click it and it just screws it up a little bit. You got drive, input gain, but the let me turn down the input gain a little bit so you can hear what the hell I'm doing. My favorite part of it is definitely the feedback section, which is really where it gets fun. So basically what you have is you have feedback that you can add into the signal. And a really fun thing to do is you can actually tune it to specific notes, not just like random frequencies. And that way you can have like tuned feedback, which is, I think, really cool. So if I play this note, and so it's great. You can do basically you can keep your distortion in fifths, so it's like free power chords. It's really fun. It's really fun. This is basically just like your low frequency and your high frequency. So like if I'm playing a C here and I set my low one to like an E, let's do that, and then I set my high one to like a G. So much fun effects. You have a dynamic section in here, which you have a threshold, you have a blend. It's pretty simple, up or down, and then you can have it ride or be based on dynamics, so that way you can get some different sounds. So you can change the threshold, so that way you get different sounds depending on how hard you're playing. And then just a really simple EQ section. You got your lows, your mids, your highs. And you got the Q, frequency, gain. And that's pretty much all that is. And then mix settings, you got your temperature, which I'll just play. I'll reset it to like just like a preset, you know? So if I put the very subtle difference with the temperature knob. And then you can also run this in like stereo, mid, or side. Any of the Waves plugins usually have a mono and a stereo version of the plugin that comes with it. And then your HD button is just going to up the quality of the sound, but I would not turn it on until you are done playing on that channel because it's not going to be real time usually. Like if I turn it on, it might be on my computer, but like for a lower end computer, it might not be. It is, but it's going to be using more CPU power than you might want to use when you're processing. So that's the first plugin there. This next one is free. This next one's free, and I'll remember to put the prices up for all of them up on the screen and where to get them at. But Ruina is completely free, and it is an absolute monster. This thing, I only found out about this thing a couple months ago, like late last year, and let's listen to it. Yeah, and the best part about this plugin, I think, is I know we've all been there when we're sitting there trying to tweak settings for 15 minutes on one plugin to get the exact sound we're going for. And this thing actually has a random button built into it. So one of my favorite things is I'll just sit here. Boom, and change the blend. It's so cool. But I'm going to turn everything down, and I'll show you, get everything here to default values. So you have a couple different sections in this, and some of the terms they use are just kind of like made up terms that isn't exactly what it's doing, but it's just like kind of the sound you're going for. So here it is with no blend. So this is the fold section. I believe it is wave folding is what it's doing, which if you're not familiar with that, go look up West Coast synthesis, and anything on that will teach you all about it. You have just a simple overdrive in the beginning. You have phase, which is just the phase of the waveform. So if you're experiencing phasing issues, you can screw with that. The center, it does that. I'm not the most technical person, if you haven't noticed. Saturate does what you think. So you get a darker saturation to the right, higher end saturation to the left. Octavize. So that's going to add an octave up. I'll turn that off. So that's the doom. It basically makes it doomy sounding. They're very self-explanatory. The buzz and the filter level. And then here you can set your filter types and what they're doing. And then another fun section is it actually has a modulation matrix kind of built into it. Not a full matrix completely, but you have an LFO that you can send to basically whatever you want, and you have a lot. You have 4 LFOs that you're working with, and then you can basically just route them to wherever you want, and that makes it for a very versatile thing, and it's great for evolving sounds, evolving distortion, stuff like that. And then config is just your normal shit. You can change the colors. I also just love the aesthetic of these. They're such cool plugins. Ruina also makes 2 great free synthesizers. I believe they are called Sync Vera and Sync. Let's see here. I think they're VST3s, I believe. Yeah, Noise Engineering, Sync Vera and Sync Invert Vera. Yeah, and they are both really cool. And they can get some crazy sounds out of them, and I like them because they mostly based off like simple waveforms. So if you're doing more glitchy, fast-paced stuff, I think those type of sounds really work well for it. But that's the second. And now it's on to numero uno, the best distortion plugin in the universe. No contest. Isotope Trash 2. This thing is a beast. This will be what most of the video is on, probably. It's already running. Hello, Max from the future here. I was not aware of this when I recorded this video, but I looked up to go get the price for Trash 2. And apparently Isotope discontinued it. So unfortunately you can't purchase Trash 2 anymore. I'm not encouraging pirating, but I would recommend getting your hands on it because it's badass. But yeah, that sucks. If you happen to have it or want to somehow get your hands on it, watch the rest. If not, the rest is on Trash 2, which apparently isn't available anymore. So thanks for watching if you end here, but if not, it's a badass plugin. I check it out. Brightness. All right. No make bigger setting. At least I don't think. Okay, but this is Isotope's Trash 2, and it is badass. And let me go over like the general layout of everything, and then we can go through each section. I can show you some presets I've made. So first you have your first filter section, which does exactly what you think. It filters the incoming sound. And so, you know, if I do this, you know, it's not going to be as prevalent on a sine wave because you're getting those pure tones, but that's what it's doing. And then you have more advanced settings over here, and you also have some modulation. You have an envelope and an LFO you can have, so you can get some really powerful stuff. So you see that first overtone's getting... Yeah, it's fantastic. Just the way that it has modulation for everything and just detailed controls, but fantastic presets too. So you can really quickly get into it. Like I barely knew what anything did for like the first year I used it. Next up, we have the trash section, which is by far the most fun section. Basically, you have 2 stages of trashing, and you just have different effects you can pick and try out, and you can layer them on top of each other, and then there's a bunch of settings for all of them. So let's go to something kind of crazy, like maybe a heavy buzzsaw. So you see that's basically what it's applying to the sound. So now if I play a normal sine wave, insane, right? And the super fun part is you can sit here and you can mess with the actual filter or the actual shape of that distortion that you're using, which is really, really fun. And you can just do all sorts of... It's crazy. And then you have your drive, your pre-gain, and then you can also do this multi-band too. So you can pick which part of the sound you want to be distorted. I typically don't use the multiband feature. I know it's probably really powerful, but I usually just kind of filter out what I want afterwards. And then you have your filter section. It's just a really easy, like 2-band filter, you know, multiband type thing where you can kind of just get whatever shape you want. And then stage 2 is going to be the same thing. It just applies it on top. So right now we have this sound. And then if I go to here and add like a distort, let's go to like a faulty. The faulty ones are really fun. So like radio contact. Check this out. And it leaves all sorts of weird artifacting and decays and fall-offs on the sound, which I really like, but of course you can always just gate that out or automate stuff to drop further if you didn't want any of those noises. Filter 2, same as filter 1, just after the fact. And the second really powerful section of trash, yeah, you thought it just trashed, it also does fantastic convolution reverb, or like using IRs, but it doesn't actually, wouldn't use it for a reverb, use it to make things sound weird. And you can load your own IRs, so if you have your own library of them that you'd like to use within the software, you can totally do that. I just use the ones that are built in with it because they have so many. Like this is just like an amp IR section, and that's a ton of them. I like to do weird stuff. Like they have mech animal, monkey. And so these really add such unique character to any of your sounds. Like that's crazy, you know? Or I really like... Like that's already a great sound. And then for some of them, I believe mostly the amps, you're going to have a choice of what microphone was being used and how much you want to separate the convoluted sound, how wide it is. Really versatile. Probably my favorite part. And then your dynamic sound is pretty standard. I typically just do dynamics outside of trash, so I haven't messed with this section a bunch. But same thing, you're going to have multi-brand compression, you're going to have a gate, you're going to have a limiter, global gain, all that fun stuff. And of course, you can also change your viewport up here to see what you're looking at. And then finally, it also, just for kicks, includes a delay section too. With all sorts of different settings. And it sounds great. And then over here, you got a limiter, and believe me, keep the limiter on if you're using this plugin. And then dry wet fader, IO right there. And it's honestly probably my favorite plugin. I use it the most out of really any other plugins besides your standard compressors and all that. But that is trash too. And finally, outside of my top 3 plugins that are just separate from Ableton, I also have some over here that I use on a very regular basis that are not plugins. They're stock with Ableton. I don't know which version. I have Suite, so I'm not sure if I believe Standard has all of these as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if the intro version or light versions have some of these as well. So I'll start with the amp. So with the amp, it's supposed to be a guitar amp. I personally would recommend never using it on a guitar, except maybe for the clean ones, if you're actually recording something you want to release, because it's not that great. I'd really recommend like a neural DSP or something like that for actual guitars, but on synthesizers, it's awesome. So use the rock amp first. It's great. It's really versatile, quick and easy, fast sounds, all that fun stuff. You have a bunch of different variations. You can kind of use the clean and the boost. It's just like a little bit of saturation if you want, which is kind of it's more unique than using just the normal saturator. Another thing, totally, if you have the chance, throw this thing on vocals. It's fantastic. Next we have the pedal, which is very similar to the amp. It basically, instead of that, it functions as a guitar pedal, and it's great. I personally prefer the fuzz out of all the effects that are built into this pedal. For the overdrive, I would just use this right here, which is just Ableton stock overdrive. Really useful. It's a good overdrive stuff. It says what it does, which is what I like about all the Ableton stuff. There's nothing extra going on. And finally, my favorite, this is not technically a distortion at all, but it's fantastic, is the drum bus. And so it's a very it just really tightens everything up. And I love the drive sounds it uses. I love the compression for actual drums, the transients, and with the transients and grunge combined, you can get some incredible drum sounds. And I really recommend one more thing, if you are using the drum sounds that come stock with Ableton, before you judge them too harshly, I know some of them leave a lot more to be wanted. I would really recommend taking it where you're like, oh, this sounds good, but it's just, I have to boost it so much to get it to cut through the mix, all that. Throw the drum bus on it first, because I feel like it's really meant to be used in tandem with their stock stuff. So that's for drums. always throw a drum bus on it, at least in my opinion, or some other program or plugin you have that does something similar. Yeah, that's a Distortion for me. I might make a sequel to this video, or a pseudo sequel that's going to be just kind of how to get the most out of plugins, or out of just effects in general. Because I think a lot of times when I was first starting out, I was really sticking to presets, or I was sticking to just a couple effects. And Ableton has some really powerful ways to combine effects. But yeah, that's it for Distortion. If you want, I got an album that's out April 7th with a couple singles out already. And I use every single one of these plugins I just talked about throughout the whole entire thing. And, you know, let me know if you can listen to some sections and go, oh, that was this plugin, that was that plugin. Because if you start using these, you'll know when you hear them. And I think it's super fun to try to find it. But yeah, thank you. And I'll see you whenever I have the audacity to record another video.